We haven't talked a lot about the elections. We talked about it a little bit. We talked about the winners, the losers, that sort of thing. And we've had a lot of people from District 4 who have been on our show. The man who won, Jim Marchand, he got about 35% of the vote. 87% of the vote or so has been counted, so still a little ways to go. But the guy who it appears as though is going to come in a narrowly close second would be Sam Peters, and he's been on the show before, and we invited him back on to talk a little bit about that. Sam, I appreciate you coming on. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Doing great, Sam.
Doing good. So, I guess from
COVID.
Oh God,
absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun doing our show from my kitchen table.
Very dangerous.
Yeah, for the last 3 months, but it's been brutal. All right, so we'll get to. I want to get to the coronavirus and your thoughts on Steve Sisolak and all that stuff. But before we get there, would you have rather have lost by a larger margin? Would it have been easier for you to take from that standpoint? I look at it like you're in a basketball game, right? And you lose in double overtime. And some people will say, gosh, we would have rather have been blown out. It would have been easier to take. How do you feel about that?
Well, you bring up basketball. I've coached a little bit in my day as well, and kids sports and whatnot. When it's a blowout, it's oftentimes you put the second string goes in, and you save your star players and that kind of thing, and you just kind of ride it out until the buzzer goes off. That's not what we did, and that's not how we are. And we kept it a close race. We left it all on the field. The team worked incredibly hard, and a loss is a loss. They're all difficult. This one, we started one of the first conversations I had on a political nature a year and a half ago was I was met with the words, "You're a nobody, you can't do it," and that was from a conservative. Somebody that's respected in the conservative world here in Nevada. So it's a loss in one ways, but I'm a very positive person. We're going to take the wins that will come out of this. Certainly, it's not a congressional seat that we're winning, but there's a lot of wins. There's a lot of wins that we put up in the win column here, and we're not done. We have a lot. There's a lot of fight that needs to happen. There's a lot of things in this country, in this state, in our city that need work. And I'm willing to fight for it. So
let's talk about that for a second. Jim Marchand, who won, he's been in our studio before, and I've said this, and I thought that my two favorite candidates that were running in D4, yourself and Lisa Song Sutton. And I thought you were more polished than anybody else.
Well, and also, running. Sam, you brought us donuts.
Well, that's true. He did bring us donuts too. But this is something, Sam, I don't understand. Let's be honest. Jim Marchand is representing the Republicans, and now he's going to be running against Stephen Horsford. Jim Marchand lost his seat to a Democrat. As far as I know, Jim Marchand hasn't really helped pass anything. I'm not trying to trash the guy, but he came into our studio. He was very wishy-washy with really every question that I asked him.
He literally did not answer any questions.
Yeah, and I don't know if he was shell-shocked. I mean, you come into our studio. I'm touching every subject with you. We talked about abortion. We talked about Donald Trump. And I respected you because even though we don't agree on everything, I thought you were reasonable, and you were polished, and you answered your questions, and you weren't afraid to speak your mind. I don't see that in Jim Marchand, and I think he's way too extreme in some cases. He's called a lot of Democrats names in the past, and he's attacked people like you and Lisa Song Sutton and other. I don't know. I'm not trying to get you to trash the guy, but at the same time, do you think this is the guy that is going to beat Horsford? Because I don't think he has a chance in hell.
First, let me say thanks. I know when I came on, I knew when I came on your show that it was. You were going to put me to task, and you did, and I appreciated that. And as I did my campaigning around the state, I told other people to do that as well. Because the reality is, when you pick somebody to represent you, to send them to Washington, whether it's Jim Marchand, whether it's me or anybody else, or Stephen Horsford, you should have access to that person, and it should be somebody that will stand up and answer your questions. And when I don't agree with you, or we don't agree with each other, we should be able to have a dialogue, and we should be able to come out of that dialogue agreeing to disagree or with agreements on some pieces of it.
Right.
I'm sorry to hear that you didn't get that from the person who was chosen to go forward. That's hopefully he'll do better and realize the errors of that, and give Stephen Horsford a good fight. Going forward, here's the deal. I'm not going to trash my Republican brethren, the people who are in this race, we, for the most part, had a cordial race. There was a little bit of behind-the-scenes slinging on a couple of different occasions, but for the most part, it was a clean race. And
Gotcha.
Going forward, I'm gonna support the Republican Party. The question you asked very clearly, is Jim the right guy? It remains to be seen.
All right, well, that's a fair answer, and we'll see what happens. Let's talk about Stephen Horsford for a second. So I blasted Stephen Horsford for several days straight when this story came out about him having a 10-year affair, just as the same as I've blasted Donald Trump for his infidelities and the Stormy Daniels stuff and, the fact that his ex-wife once accused him of rape, and he doesn't have a very good track record of women either. I think you should be able to do both. My issue is this, and you tell me if you agree or not. What I lose respect for are the Republicans, and I'm not saying you're one of them, the Republicans out there that have been all over Stephen Horsford, which is fine. I've done the same thing, but stay silent when it comes to Donald Trump and the way he's treated women his whole life. What do you say to that?
You made a comment. You said you think you should be able to do both. Do both what?
You should be able to call out both Donald Trump for his infidelities, cheating scandals, sex scandals, as you would for Horsford.
He's saying that he could call them both Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, no, I got it. Thank you for that, for clarity. So here's what I say on that. I have gone after Horsford as well. I haven't gone after Horsford for the infidelity. What he does in his bedroom and all of that type of stuff is between him and his family. I don't think the American public or Nevada constituents that he has really cares about that. What I care about and what I called him out on was the 10-year cover-up that his staff was aware of.
Right.
If his staff is aware of that cover-up, they are paid by the taxpayers. So in essence, through his use of position or his use of government taxpayers' dollars, they were part of this cover-up. And that, in my estimation, is against the law, and at the very least puts him in a place where we can't trust him with our tax dollars. The other side of it is, not just the staff and all of that. There's a campaign issue here. The use of campaign dollars. We looked back at some of his FEC reports, and you can do this too. It's public information. There's a period of time in, I think it was October of last year, where he spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars over the course of a week at one of the downtown hotels or the strip casino hotels. If he has a house here and he's actually a resident here, why is he staying at the strip? And spending campaign dollars to do it. So, and maybe there were functions, maybe it's on the up and up, but when you look at about a 10 or 11 year scandal going on, being covered up, and it just smells. So there's something there. And again, it's to your point, I understand where you're going with, we should call out Biden if he's done these things. Absolutely. Should we call out the president if he's done these things as well? Look, on both of those cases, I will tell you that sexual assault, sexual harassment, rape, all of that stuff is horrible. It should never happen. If it does happen and you're a victim of that, you should have the courage and the mechanisms to come forward and have that addressed.
Sure, absolutely.
All of those cases.
I agree. I guess the way I feel is if you're lying to your wife and your family for 10 years and you can't be trusted by the ones who love you the most, then why should we trust them to run a city or state?
And also, Horsford has been called by not just Republicans but also Democrats kind of an absentee placeholder. That really isn't you can't really get a hold of him very often. I believe he also has another residence in Virginia. I think he's actually a resident of the state of Virginia. So a lot of things like that factor in as well.
I think to an extent we agree, but I just think anybody that does something like that has an affair. I get what you're saying, Sam, that it's private, it's a private matter. But if your own family and loved ones can't trust you, then why should the voters trust you?
No, I agree. Don't take me wrong. It's horrible, and from a voting perspective, as an individual, I think it's you're absolutely right. He can't be trusted. His family can't trust him. I can't trust him as a guy that's supposed to represent me. And quite frankly, when we talk about representation, we're going to elect somebody we want to kind of mirror us. That's not somebody that's going to get my vote.
Yeah.
And
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood. That's how I feel about Trump. I know you don't, but I feel the same way about Horsford, and I'm not a supporter of his either. Just for the record,
that, Brian.
So, with that being said, let's talk about coronavirus and coronavirus response.
Sure.
Steve Sisolak, in my personal opinion, his shortcomings, I don't think he's great with the media. I don't think he's extremely transparent. And not only that, but I don't think he words things appropriately at times. But with that being said, I think he shut down the Strip when it needed to be shut down. I personally think we've reopened things too early when it based the fact that 19 states in the country are now way up, have a huge uptick in coronavirus cases. But I know you'll probably disagree with me on that. So talk to me about coronavirus and specifically locally the coronavirus response and your opinions to Steve Sisolak.
My opinion of Steve Sisolak is I agree with you on the first part that you said he shut down the Strip initially. And initially when he shut down the Strip, he came out and he shut it down for 30 days. I very soon thereafter put out a call for him to shorten that to 2 weeks so we could adjust, figure out if we had the medical supplies in place to see what this virus actually did. To have kept he didn't do that clearly. He continued the drawing out of the closure. And quite frankly, he didn't have the mechanisms. He had the mechanisms in place from a capacity, hospital capacity standpoint. He did not have the capacity or the ability to take care of the problems he created by keeping the closure going as long as he did. Going to a 28% unemployment rate and having the inability to process unemployment claims when the federal dollars were sitting there waiting to be processed. That's a big failure.
Right.
You know, as far as opening up, I think we should be there at a bigger level than we are. Here's my opinion on this. I've looked at the numbers numerous times and throughout this phased approach, and we've had the flu for a long time. We've had viruses on the planet forever. The virus isn't going away. It's not. Polio has been almost eradicated, and it's been active. We've had an active vaccine for a long, long time, but it's still on the planet. This one is going to be just like the flu. In fact, you know, we talk about numbers and we look at, you know, where we're at. You said a minute ago, a lot of states are up, and when we look at the death rates and we start looking at all of the deaths that occurred that were attributed to COVID but weren't actually COVID, they just happened to get a little extra federal dollars because they called it COVID. That's reality, and that's been happening, and that skews the entire plan of opening or not based on the death rate. So
Sam, I think you can do that with not only the cases you mentioned, but also the nursing homes. There's several states across the country that forced their particular nursing homes to take in patients that had the disease and got over it into the nursing homes. But if you look at Nevada compared to like New York they're in stage 3 now. They're in phase 3. New York, this was the epicenter of the virus. They had probably 100 times the cases and deaths that Nevada's had. Nevada's positive testing rate is down to 4.47%. Why? I mean, we're still here. We're still here in Brian's living room doing the show. Why do you think that Steve Sisolak has not pushed us forward to stage 3 or phase 3 or phase 4, considering how little of the virus we actually have in this particular state?
I can only come up with 2 reasons, and one reason is fear. He's afraid of any pushback whatsoever, and 2, just lack of leadership ability. I mean, he just doesn't have it. I mean, we've watched him, and to Brian's point, he's not very well-spoken, or he doesn't. He's come out and, you know, given us a look of a press conference. We're going to have a press conference at 5:00, and we're going to give you the phase 2 plan. And he's come out and he's talked for an hour and said nothing. He doesn't look. He looks disheveled every time he comes on.
I am not.
It's not leadership. So
okay. So Sam, I am not going to 100% disagree with you on what you just said. You heard me say it earlier, but you know what I'm going to do, and I'm not trying to do whataboutism here, but I have to bring this up.
But you are.
Well, because Donald Trump is our president. When Donald Trump holds press conferences, coronavirus press conferences, and he brags about ratings. And then you have OAN reporters talking about abortion. And he wants to talk about that. And he wants to talk about the collusion farce. And he wants to talk about the elections in November. And he wants to make fun of Joe Biden. Would you also agree that Donald Trump maybe hasn't shown a tremendous amount of leadership when he lied? And he said months ago, if you want to get a test, you can get a test. I remember Republicans bashed Barack Obama for saying, if you want to get another doctor, you can. If you want to keep your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Okay? And Republicans bashed him for that. You know what? Barack Obama was wrong. He shouldn't have said that. But Donald Trump also shouldn't have said, if you want a test, you can get a test 3 or 4 months ago. I just want to be fair on both sides of the aisle. And I get what you're saying about Sisolak, and some of your criticism I agree with. But why can't we do the same with Donald Trump? And why is it that there's so many Trump supporters out there that think he showed tremendous leadership during this coronavirus when I think it is the absolute opposite? And he was running campaign rallies here in February, and he had people in his administration in late December that were warning him of this virus. Can't we do both?
So let me touch on that last point you just made. He had a rally here in February. I was at that rally. In fact, I was on the floor of that rally, shaking hands and hugging and having a really good time with thousands of people, voters. And what are our levels as far as sicknesses and deaths in Nevada? I mean, and those numbers kind of make my point that the state needs to be opened a lot more than it is. To your question, why can't we attack the president on his leadership ability? We could if we wanted to. I for one don't want to, because I don't think his level of failures have anywhere close come to what Sisolak's are. And to that point, I think he's done. Maybe he said, if you want a test, you can get a test. Is that false across the country? Perhaps in his perspective and what he was being told from his advisors, maybe that was true in his little circle. Well, on the larger scale, down to the smallest community, absolutely, probably not accurate.
So can I ask you something?
Sure.
So can I ask you something when it comes to that real quickly? Sure. So Sam, because I know you're an honest guy, when Barack Obama said, if you want to keep your doctor, you can keep your doctor. Mm-hmm. Did you make that same explanation? Say, well, maybe he just got some bad information from his advisors.
I will tell you no, and here's why. When he said those statements, he was trying to pass a bill that Nancy Pelosi was standing at the pulpit saying, we have to pass it to find out what's in it. So I think we're talking about two widely different scenarios.
Can it be possible that maybe Donald Trump said that because he doesn't want to take accountability and he wants to be reelected in November?
I think Donald Trump absolutely wants to be reelected in November. I don't think there's an accountability issue there.
So when Donald Trump is asked at a press conference,
mm-hmm.
would you have done anything differently? And he responds, no, when you know that the testing wasn't ready and we weren't ready for this virus. We know that. That's 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Why would he give an answer like that?
Brian, why is that?
Well, I'm asking Sam. Why would he give an answer like that?
Well, if that's his answer. The question to Donald Trump at that time was, would you have done anything different? And he said no. I can't. Are you asking me what he should have done different, or why he answered the way he did?
A little bit of both, I guess. I mean, do you agree with him giving that type of response? And when you look at all the people throughout this country that have contracted the virus, those who have died, I mean, we can get in the weeds of whether you think the numbers are inflated or not. I don't want to go down that path.
We could also go down the path of where the information came from China, which was totally inaccurate. We could have said, what Anthony Fauci, his top, the top virologist in the country said on multiple occasions that we were going to be fine. We could talk about what de Blasio said. We could talk about how many cases there were in the United States in February when all this stuff happened. But the fact of the matter is, Brian, Donald Trump did an exceptional job.
Well, I couldn't disagree with you
of handling this.
I couldn't. There's nothing
considering the circumstances.
I couldn't disagree with you more.
Brian, I appreciate disagreeing with you. I really do, and I love these banterings back and forth. I do side with JD on this one for the majority of it. If I was asked the question, what do I think Donald Trump could have done differently, and I said this, a few weeks ago, I think he should have fired Fauci a long time ago.
I agree.
Why?
Because the guy, Fauci's numbers have been inaccurate. I mean, and coming out and saying the models show this, and then to retract those models a few weeks later after none of that's happening and say, well, the models show this, and then the models are wrong again by a very large margin, by the way. And then telling people that, this drug that's on the shelves, hydrochloroquine, and we can talk about Sisolak, addictive on this as well.
And the FBI just got rid. The FDA, I'm sorry, just got rid of it.
Just pulled it. I understand.
Yeah.
The guy has been trouble from the beginning. He's been a pencil pusher in a lab for 40 years, and now he's handling this on the national level. This pandemic.
All right. Well, you're entitled to that. You're entitled to that. You're not the only one that feels that way, and you're entitled to that opinion. But let me ask you this question: what would you say if Steve Sisolak held a press conference and he peddled the fact that maybe people should inject themselves with disinfectant? What would you have said if Steve? Be honest. If Steve Sisolak held a press conference and he started talking about that, what would you have said? Was
he joking when he said it?
Do you really think Donald Trump was joking when he looked at Dr. Birx and nobody was laughing? You really believe that excuse? Sam, I know you're a smart guy. Yeah. You have to tell me that's BS.
Yeah, I don't believe in any world that Donald Trump was serious about having people inject themselves with bleach.
Then why would he bring it up in a coronavirus press conference?
And nobody who doesn't have a massive bias against Donald Trump, who doesn't think he has an IQ of 35 and a fifth-grade education, actually believes
so here's my question.
Donald Trump really thinks that injecting disinfectant with a syringe is going to help you.
I know you're going to agree with Sam.
Or a prophylactic.
Okay, so let me ask. All right, so let me ask you this then. We only got a couple more minutes left. If he was joking, let's go with that theory for a second. Yeah. Why was nobody laughing? Why did he look at Dr. Birx? And if he was trying to make a joke at the end of that ridiculous statement, why didn't he say, folks, I'm only joking? And the reason why I asked that question, as you know, Donald Trump represents everybody in this country, even the idiots and the dumbbells, okay? There are some dumbbells that are going to listen to what he says, and somebody did take disinfectant and died. Somebody did do that in Kansas. So if that is true and he was joking, don't you think he probably should have made that clear, not the day after?
Not the day after? So he did make it clear the day after? Is that what you're...
The day after he used... The day after he used the excuse and he said he wasn't being serious.
Okay, so he cleared it up the following day when.
Right, I'm just saying he probably should have done it that day when he said it, so people didn't take him seriously.
Okay.
Fair enough. Can we agree on that at least?
I mean, you're asking me why nobody laughed at his joke.
I'm just surprised. I'm just surprised you think he was joking. But
what he's doing is he is creating an indictment on all the reporters in the room that don't have a sense of humor. That's what he's doing.
Well, no, I think when somebody makes a joke, usually they laugh. But anyway, we are up against it, my friend. Sam, I always appreciate it when you take some time to call in. It's always a good, lively debate.
To be continued.
Yes, Sam, we got to do this again when we're back in studio. Listen, I think you're a great guy. You're very smart, and I'm actually disappointed that you didn't win because I would have supported you over Jim Marchant. That's just my personal opinion. But Sam, we got to do this again, my friend. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Sam.
Guys, be well. We'll talk soon.
Appreciate it. There you go. That's Sam Peters. Came in second in District 4, behind Jim Marchant, who I think is a complete moron. I'll just go ahead and say it. But it's okay. It's all right. He has no chance of beating Stephen Horsford. 0% chance to beat.
I will totally agree with that.
Yes.
I don't think he has.
JD and I agree on something.
I don't think he has a snowball's chance in hell of beating Stephen Horsford.
So, Mr. Marchant, do you believe it's true that Donald Trump might have cheated on a few of his ex-wives? Do you believe that? Well, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Thanks, Jim. You're a great politician.
I hope he wasn't there.
Thanks, Jim. Well, maybe he was. I don't know. Anyway, we like Sam Peters. I like him. We don't always agree, but Sam's a good guy.
So you think all Democrats are evil?
Well, I don't know. I wasn't there.
I mean,
we got to.
They could be, right?